You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I'm your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com, click on podcasts, and you'll find the Batman Podcast Network. There's a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also love to dive into other nerdy topics we all love to frolic about in our free time. Batman Book Club is also part of Patreon. If you like what you hear with the show and you want to help support it, you can do that at patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Anything you'd like to help with helps keep the generator running here in the Wayne Manor study. So thank you for listening to episode number 92, Last Night on Earth. Now, joining me is no stranger to this show. He's been on a few times, and he even has his own Batman podcast, The Fire Rises. It's Mr. Eric Carter. Eric, welcome back to this here show.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me once again. This is the big number 4, I think.
Number 4.
So I'm past the hat trick.
The hat trick's one thing, but then it's a whole new tier once you get to 4 and beyond. So this is where I stop counting how many times you come on. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
I don't think I can chisel away at some of the like Justin Kowalski numbers, or definitely not Pete Vera now that he's a monthly contributor to the Batman Book Club. But
he has a very comfortable lead over second place. So we'll just say that much. So unless he decides to not do it, which I don't think he ever will withdraw his invite, he's here once a month. But
he loves reading comics too much to
he
quit
does
that.
Exactly. It's one of his favorite pastimes. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm trying to think. I think the last episode you were on was for Dark Prince Charming. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
That's it.
So we learned long ago, I think it was way back in 2020, a lifetime ago when you were on the first time, what your favorite Batman story is. So instead of rehashing that, let's ask real quick, what Batman comics have you been reading lately? Or Batman material. We'll just say Batman material even.
Whew. Well, you already know, Ryan. My last month has been these things.
Oh my God.
And for people who can't see like Ryan, it's the Snyder and Capullo volumes 1 and 2 omnibus.
I think it's in the shape of like an 80-pound dumbbell. I think is that it?
Basically,
how big it is? Okay. Yeah, I thought so.
So when we talked about doing this episode, I had told you a long time ago I wanted to do Last Night on Earth. And I decided, well, you know what? I haven't done it in a while. I got the Volume 2 Omnibus for Christmas from my lovely wife. So I said, okay, well, leading up to Last Night on Earth, I'm going to read the entire Snyder Capullo run. So I read all the way through it. Wow. Which I will tell you, Snyder stuff works really well in a binge.
Yeah. So does the Omnibus Volume 2 include the metal stuff? Or is Last Night on Earth the last story in that?
So technically that's outside the continuity of the New 52 stuff. So It is not included. But I kind of, now that I'm finished with this, I feel the urge to jump into the Snyder Justice League and metal stuff. So maybe we'll see.
Okay. All right.
Oh, before we move on, I also say that I've started reading the Batman novel that's attached to the upcoming movie. I started reading that last night, so gave myself a little break from Snyder. Nice.
Yeah, look at us. Look at us reading this thing. Yeah, not a challenging read. I will say that was a little bit it was refreshing.
Isn't it a cute little book?
It's a so cute little book. It is. And I like that it's a hardcover. It's a small detail, but it's like, I like this. It was
a nice surprise
thing going on. So, yeah, very cool. All right. How long did it take you to go through the whole Snyder Capullo, both of your omnibi?
It took Boy, just a tiny bit over a month.
No.
So, which I mean, sounds like a long time, but that's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these omnibus also include like the tie-in issues that were in between Snyder and Capullo's New 52 books. So it's
Hmm.
probably, I don't know, if I'm going to ballpark it, maybe 70, 75 issues total.
That's a lot, Eric.
Yeah, in a month, that's a lot.
that's, that's a lot. But you had fun. And the culmination is the Batman Book Club for Last Night on Earth.
Exactly.
So let's get to talking about Last Night on Earth. Now, for anybody who is very curious, Batman Last Night on Earth was written by Scott Snyder, illustrated by Greg Capullo, as you could have put together by what we just talked about. It was released in 3 prestige format physical books in 2019. It's been collected in a hardcover. It's been collected in a trade paperback. It's available digitally. It's on DC Universe Infinite. It's also on Hoopla. And as Eric just said, it's included in an omnibus. Eric, first question. Which version of this did you read?
So, of course, I read it in the omnibus.
Oh, the
'cause
omnibus. Oh, okay.
It was my
There we
first time
go.
reading it through in the omnibus, but I also went back
Sure.
and I read this twice in preparation for the Batman Book Club.
Wow.
I
You're
read it in the
prepared.
omnibus, and then this week I read it on DC Universe Infinite. So,
Okay. Whoa.
a little bit of both.
Overachiever.
Yeah.
This is a book that I resorted to my favorite app, Hoopla, to read from. Yeah. And do you remember when? I mean, it's fairly recent. So, when was the first time that you read this story?
As they were coming out, I have
Okay.
I have my issues here, my floppies.
Nice.
So I read all of these as they were coming out, and there was a really big gap. It's like I think the first issue came out in May of 19, and then maybe June or July was the second issue, and it was all the way until December until the final issue came out.
Yeah, that's
And
what
I'm not sure.
I remember as well.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you know if why there was a delay or a gap there, but I definitely had to reread the first 2 issues when the third one came out.
Now, I think I want to say that there was information about it at the time, but it would have had to have been like maybe Scott Snyder tweeted something out. I don't remember, and I didn't go back to try and find stuff for this.
No,
I
me
was
either.
just like, to me, it's not necessarily whatever. If I have the time and I really want to know, but otherwise, just look. There was a gap between issues 2 and 3. Yeah, that was the first time that I read it too. I actually reviewed it for Batman on Film, and
Ooh, I'm gonna have to
once
go back and look that up.
more on that during our discussion. I'm not going to show my hand at all on anything yet, but yeah, we'll talk about that when that comes. So, lastly, of all the books that you could pick from, why did you choose Last Night on Earth for this episode?
So, anybody that has listened to me on this podcast before or on my own podcast knows that I'm a huge Snyder fan, especially the pairing of Snyder and Capullo. That's my lane. I know it's popular, Pete Vera, to pick on 2011 Batman fans, but Snyder and Capullo actually did get me back into reading Batman. I had fallen off of comics for quite a while, and I knew there was a Batman #1 coming, so I figured, what better place to jump back on than Batman #1. So I remember picking up Batman #1 of the New 52 run, and I fell in love with it. Just a little throwback. Court of Owls is my favorite Batman story ever. So when I found out,
but still go back and listen to Eric's first time on the show. The whole discussion is good. Okay, yeah. All right, carry on.
So when I found out that this book was coming out, I got really excited because it had been a while since we had gotten Snyder and Capullo on Batman, solely Batman. So I was excited about it, and all the other big Snyder Capullo books were kind of taken on your show, and I didn't figure a lot of people were going to ask for this one. So I like the kind of underdog books. We've talked about that before, so I figured this would be a great one to talk about.
Well, this would be very fun to discuss because this may be the first time in the history of the Batman Book Club, coming up on 2 years next month that this show has been around. 92 episodes. And this may be the first Batman book that I don't really like that I've covered on the show. Yeah, hot take. But I have full respect for Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, and the people who read this book and really like this book. And I'm excited to talk about it because I like to talk about my discussion with Javi Trujillo on Batman R.I.P., the most stressful episode of the Batman Book Club in its 23-month existence, because that book is, to me, very frustrating. This one I don't think is very frustrating. I think I know where I stand. However, it's good to talk to somebody who really enjoys the book. Maybe some of this stuff that's not clear to me will be clear by the time we finish talking about it. So I really look forward to talking about this story.
Well, let me put a disclaimer out there, Ryan, before we get going.
Okay.
If you don't like this book, and talking to you and any of the listeners, I completely get it. I think this is one of those books that you either go with or you don't.
Yeah.
And there's not much, I don't think there's a lot of in-between area. It's either this fits your Batman sensibilities or it's way outside of them.
And I appreciate that with you too, because you're a very sensible young lad. As I've gotten to talk to you and get to know you over the years, and you're not someone who's like, you don't like it just because you didn't get it. That approach, that's yeehaw approach that I just love from people. Treating that just because views are different is because you're dumber than they are and you just didn't get it. And sometimes it's like stuff just doesn't work. And we'll get into some specifics on what didn't, because I also do have positives to talk about with the story as well. A funny thing about writing the reviews for this, the first issue came out and I was in Chicago at the time, and I was taking a bus to go catch, I don't know what movie, but from work, I caught a bus. I was going to the theater, and Peter Vera himself called me. And this was our first phone call we've ever had. We texted, emailed, and all that stuff before, but we hadn't talked on the phone. And he called, and I'm like, hello? And he goes, am I the only one who doesn't like Batman Last Night on Earth? That was his opening line to me. And I'm like, what? He's like, am I the only one who doesn't like Batman? Because my review had been posted that day on Batman on Film for Last Night on Earth Book 1, and I gave it a good review. I was all in on it. And so, yeah, we talked about that book and everything. The second issue came out. I wasn't so hot on it. And then there was that gap. And I don't know if I refreshed my memory of reading the first two books by the time the third one came out, to where I emailed Bill and said, Bill, can I just not write a review for this one? And he's like, yeah, it's okay. We don't have to write a review. We just won't talk about it. And so I didn't write a review for the third issue. That'll be interesting to go back and read the first two on the website. So there you go. There's a little plug for BOF. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, because I think that it does tie into this story, is a certain kind of short story written by Scott Snyder, illustrated by Sean Murphy, that was first published in Detective Comics number 27 in 2013. I believe it was also reprinted and collected in the Batman 80th anniversary hardcover. And I really want to say it's been in something else too. That story brings about this idea of a new Batman is created every 27 years. Is that correct?
25 or 27, something like that.
Okay. And this new Batman is created in this Batcave, has kind of like the memories of Batman. It's almost like starts where, think when you read, Detective number 27, the original. that established Batman and all that stuff, like that's how this new Bruce Wayne is created every 25 or 27 years. And that idea was presented first in that book. Now, I bring that up because that's referenced in this story. And I do believe Scott Snyder had tweeted out in building up to this story about this was kind of a culmination of him and Capullo's run. A lot of the
Yes.
beats that they had played out in the New 52, like they were going to be referenced in here. And that was definitely one that really stuck out to me. And that story, actually, I respect the idea and think it is kind of clever. I kind of don't like it.
Yeah, and like I said,
I don't like it.
that's one of those parts where if you don't like it, I get it. One thing that I really really love about Scott Snyder is he's great at planting a seed
Mm-hmm.
in a story, and then further down in the arc, bringing that back to light. Because
Yeah.
that machine aspect that recreates Bruce Wayne to be Batman also comes up in Super Heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
one of those little things like the Gotham Is column in the Gotham
Yes.
Gazette. It
Yep.
comes up all throughout Snyder's run, and it also comes up in this book. So that's story consistency is one thing that I really really enjoy about Snyder's writing.
Absolutely. And I guess that could be the prerequisite for going into Last Night on Earth is that. Otherwise, I think you could jump right into this story. You get more out of it if you've
Mhm.
read Snyder's run.
Right.
But I think you could hop into this book without having read all of that, and you could still, you'll get it. You'll get what he's putting out there.
Well, and what's so interesting about this book, Ryan, is that, and I think you've probably read this. Have you read the afterword that he put at the end of book 3?
I mean, when it first came out,
Okay.
that's not included. That's
Oh,
included.
no. You're right. It's not. It's okay. So it's in the omnibus. I think it may be in the hardcover.
It's released. It is in the Barnes and Noble exclusive.
Okay, there you go.
But I don't. I wanted to get that when Barnes and Noble did their right after Christmas half off sale, and I almost bought this book knowing I was doing this episode, and because I wanted to read that afterward and such. But I held off, so I don't know what's in that afterward. I forget.
Okay, so I don't have that hardcover either because I was waiting for like a deluxe edition or something like that, and now I have it in the omnibus. So, but anyway, the afterword, it's very interesting because, so you find out in the afterword that the bones of this story were actually laid. He basically wrote this story in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was freaking out about, I think he was feeling a lot of pressure being on the Batman book, even though he had been doing it for like 2 years. I don't know if it was where he didn't know where to go next or, whatever the case may be, but he actually got advice from Grant Morrison of all people. And Grant said, look, have a beginning and have an end for your Batman. He said, and then it makes everything else in the middle a lot easier. So he actually wrote the bones of Last Night on Earth way back in 2013. It changed a little bit when they actually got to the final version. But that is also another thing that I really, really like about the story. Not just this book, but the entire Snyder Capullo run. I enjoy a book that I can read a beginning, a middle, and an end. I know that's not popular sometimes with Batman, but that's one thing I really love about the Dark Knight trilogy, because you have one contained Batman story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you have that with Snyder's run here too. And regardless of what you think of Last Night on Earth, it is the end that he intended for his Batman. And I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to with the Grant Morrison part because he's said that I think Grant Morrison's run is his favorite Batman. And yeah, he said with Morrison told him your character like for it to be definitive, it needs a birth and a death. And so that's where aspirations for this. But also I remember Sean Murphy was, I think, going to be the artist for this story.
Yep.
Was even teased of like it was called Last Night. And I
Mhm.
remember being excited for that because I liked Sean Murphy's work. And I think when that was announced, White Knight it had a few issues that had come out too. And then I think Snyder had ultimately said, like, you have to like know the book, and this isn't like, maybe Sean isn't the right piece for this. And then went back to
No,
Capullo, and that makes total sense.
yeah, it does. And I love Sean Murphy.
Yep.
I've done an episode here on a Sean Murphy book, but
That's right.
I don't think the sensibilities of this book fit Sean Murphy's art. I think Capullo was pitch perfect for this, and it fits with the rest of the run. Honestly,
Yeah, exactly.
Even though, I mean, this was a Black Label book, so it's not technically canon, or it doesn't technically fit in with the New 52. But if you read it along with all that stuff, it really does.
Yeah, and there's not pitch perfect teams very often on, like, in comics, and
Mhm.
Capullo and Snyder are one of them.
Mhm.
So to me, it only makes sense that they're the team for this quote unquote final story of their Batman. So also it can be collected in an omnibus. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to know something ironic, Ryan?
Yes, always.
I'm not a fan of Grant Morrison Batman,
No way.
but I love Snyder Batman. How weird is that?
Yeah. And that's where I can say, I get it. If you listen to Batman R.I.P., I still don't know if I'm a fan of Grant Morrison's Batman or not. I can tell you at the time that it was coming out month to month, it was a hell of a ride. It was just the ending was not fun.
That was such
The
a
last
fun
part,
episode to listen to, though, just so you know.
I was sweating. It was stressful. All right. So, I think when you showed me your book, you've got all sorts of notes for it and everything. So I want you to just kind of take it away on the points. We don't have to take it through the whole. This is what happened every because in it are they chapters, right? There's 10
Yeah.
chapters. Okay, yeah, we don't
So
have to go
there's
chapter by chapter, but start us off.
right. So the basic premise of this story is you talked about that seed that was planted where Bruce Wayne created a machine to replicate himself every 25 to 27 years. So that way that each new generation has its own Batman,
Mm-hmm.
which, whether you like the concept or not, I mean, it is a very Batman idea to,
Yeah.
Want to have a way to protect Gotham and the world with a Batman constantly. So the way that this story goes is that we're kind of getting the story of a new awakening Batman, except when he awakes, things have gone all wrong. The world is in a mess. It's post-apocalyptic. Is that what you would call it, Ryan? I think
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Mad Max style wasteland, and we're going through this world as Batman tries to figure out what's happened and what he can do to stop it. And it just so happens that along the way, his partner, his sidekick in this, is a beheaded Joker in a jar or a lantern. So
And that, I feel like that was kind of plastered everywhere. That was quite the hook to draw everybody in of what the hell is going on with this book.
yeah,
Joker's head is in a glass jar and it's alive. What?
yeah. But let me say that it's a hell of an image.
It is.
I mean, I love it so much. I got the little the Q fig
Oh,
of it.
nice.
So,
well, it's unmistakably, what book this is. You see that,
mm-hmm.
and you can only hope that you create something where one piece of it is definite, like what that's connected to, what that's representing.
Yeah.
You see that Joker head in a glass jar, and you're like, Last Night on Earth.
Yep. Exactly. I wouldn't call it iconic because it hasn't been around anywhere near long enough to be iconic, but it's definitely, you know what that is, like you said.
Yeah.
But we did skip past, I do want to go back that the way this book opens is that Bruce Wayne, or this new Bruce Wayne, wakes up in Arkham Asylum. And
Well, he's
you
led
have
to
he's led to Crime Alley.
yeah, the spot where his parents were murdered,
Right.
because there have been clues of like a red chalk line, and when
Yep.
his satellite sees it's an outline of a dead body or a dead
Uh,
Batman with where his
yep.
heart would be, is that exact spot.
Is in Crime
Interesting
Alley.
start to a book. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie. Okay,
So
carry on.
and yeah, and so when he gets to Crime Alley, he finds a deceased little boy, um, who is very badly decomposed. And when he tries to, investigate, the boy is rigged with a gun, and Batman supposedly gets shot. And then we get Bruce Wayne waking up in Arkham Asylum, and we have Alfred kind of telling Bruce that none of this is real. Batman's not real. He's created in his mind, and he was the one that killed his parents. And all of these villains that he's conjured up in his head are really the doctors and the people who work at Arkham Asylum. So his main doctor is Dr. Redmond Hood. And you see like Harley Quinn in there, and you see Penguin, and they're all these doctors, which I thought was a really neat concept to open a book. It reminded
Bane,
me of
Riddler, yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of Shutter Island. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not.
Yeah, I thought Shutter Island, it's been a long time, but something 12 Monkeys ish a little bit about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm with you. And also the vibe of it, something made me think Perchance to Dream.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call.
I mean, just because of the whole like, dreaming, and he's like aware, no, this isn't right. This isn't real. But the reality in front of him is being like, no, this is real, and making him really question himself. Like that made me think Perchance to Dream. So there you go. Three ingredients right here: Shutter Island,
Yeah.
12 Monkeys, Perchance to Dream.
Which I will say, I think you could take that same concept and write a different Batman story,
Yeah.
and make it interesting on its own. Just
Yeah.
Batman, waking up in this asylum, and Alfred convincing him that Batman is in his mind. But anyway, yeah, as we go forward, he figures out that this is all a ruse. But I do like how far Alfred went to try to convince him of this, because he had the straight jacket and the what is it, shock therapy helmet that looks like the Batman cowl.
Yeah.
So he tries to convince him that this is his bat suit, and he's, even more conjuring in his mind of what's going on here. So, but of course, our Bruce Wayne figures out what's going on, and this whole thing is a intricate setup. And Alfred's just basically trying to keep his boy, keep him from going down the madness that is Batman, and he's trying to, he's just trying to keep this version of Bruce Wayne with him so he can live happily, I guess. So far as the start, what did you think of all this, Ryan?
The asylum part I thought was great, because I mean that wraps up. I mean, what was that? Probably halfway through book one. So I knew that there's a lot left here, but I found it interesting because of the things that we just said that we thought about when we first opened it and read it. And it was interesting to me well, we know that he didn't just make it up in his head. So what's really going on here? But cool that it's making us ourselves think it all does add up in what Alfred's trying to tell him. And then here's his quote unquote cast of doctors that he's created as characters and villains in his mind. And it's like everything checks out. Like, oh, there's a Joker. You kept saying that this guy was Joker. You kept saying that this was, that this was your, I think they said like a physical trainer or something. That was Bane, and all those, like all of that is checking out, and stuff that Alfred's saying is checking out. And so it is that to me is interesting. I do like
Mm-hmm.
that part of it. And then it'd be like, okay, so where are we gonna go with this?
So it's the where we went that you were you weren't such a
Yeah.
fan of.
And that's not
Okay.
because and so then I mean, stuff did click better this time than it has in the past.
Mm.
You get that, which was introduced way back in that, what was it, Batman number, I mean, maybe
Detective
it
27.
was, no, maybe it was Batman number one that Dick had the mask, that he pushes it and then it changes the face.
Oh yeah, Batman number 1 in the New 52.
That's something
Yeah,
that Scott Snyder likes to use and bring up a lot, which I've always dug. That's a cool
yeah.
addition. And Alfred's wearing that, into where he reveals that Alfred's actually really old at this point. He's
Mhm.
not as young as that mask is appearing. But yeah, once he came out and we entered the Mad Max world, that's where I got very like, okay, because I didn't even mind this bat suit, of the straight jacket with the cowl. Like, well, of course, it's not like this is my favorite bat suit of all time, but it's like, I don't know, it's different. That's cool. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
mind it.
it looks
It's like,
really
okay,
cool. I mean, I don't want it as a regular batsuit, but it looks cool.
no, I didn't buy the McFarlane figure for it, and I'm not going to. But I mean, something about it does look kind of cool. So
Mhm.
I think what ends up, what we're or not where we went was, I'm along for the ride. I just hope that the destination's worth the trip.
Right.
And the story, I feel, does become like a travelogue with exposition. And then there's a lot of complexity thrown in on top of some complexity. And that's something I think maybe I've brought up in every Snyder book that we cover. The guy is fantastic. I think he does get wordy, and he does get extremely specific in his wordy dialogue.
Well,
And
and
that
that's a
gets
fair
me to,
criticism
and it's
because
not like, go ahead.
even Greg Capullo has said, sometimes he has to say, Scott, I got to get the drawings in somewhere. So
Yeah. And so it's not like I want, this is too smart for me or anything like that. It's just, let's take that mask, for example, that Alfred
Mhm.
pushes and it turns and he's actually old and it's a mask. I don't really need to know all the science behind it. Followed
Mhm.
by the next move, all the science behind it. And then the next move, all the science. Like, I get the gist. That slows down the pacing for me. That ends up getting, like, that slows down the story too much for me sometimes.
Right. Well, and I'm not making excuses for him, but correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he like a novelist before he wrote comics, short stories or
Um,
something like that?
yes, he did have a short story, or he wrote a short story book. I think that was like his only published work before, and then that
Mm.
got him noticed for American Vampire.
Right. So I do think he still, even all these years later, he gets into the habit of trying to put as much detail
Yeah.
as possible in there for the reader. When comics readers, and this is a criticism. I love Scott Snyder, but this is a
Mhm.
criticism I see. Comics readers don't always need that level of detail. Just let the art tell us, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
So, I mean, that's fine. That is something that kept me back. I'm trying to think. I can just get it all out now of that. So it's a travel log. There's a lot of exposition. I don't really love the designs of characters we end up meeting on the way. I give this team all the credit to come up with something original.
mhm,
Prior to this, I think Snyder's whole Batman run, and 1 to 52, is such a focus on Gotham. He's said in
mhm.
all of his interviews so much of thinking of New York and how it was a character to him growing up and stuff, and he incorporated that into Batman. And Gotham is the first words in his run way back when, where Gotham is. And in this story, it's like, nope, we're out of Gotham. That's not the a character in this really anymore. So
Mhm.
he's doing something different.
Well, I mean, and if you were to say that once he leaves the fake Gotham that Alfred has
Yeah.
created, if
Yeah.
you were to say this becomes like a almost kind of a Justice League story,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be far off. I mean, because
Yeah.
it stays Batman focused because you're going through this journey with Batman, but you see every corner of the DC universe, so it does become kind of more than just a Batman book. So if
I
that's a
agree.
criticism that people would have, I can't dispute that.
Dispute me. Just do it.
but
You don't know what you're talking about.
but I think Snyder is very much, for me, like an amalgam of Grant Morrison and Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
You get a lot of good grounded, or not grounded per se, but focused Batman stuff, and then you get some really wacky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it just works for me. But we probably can't go beat by beat as we did through that first little section. But basically, after Batman leaves, because Alfred knows he's going to leave, so he asks. I do like the little part where he asks him, take something to remember me by. So he takes the penny that was in Bruce's cell to represent the penny from the Batcave.
Yeah.
And then when he gets out, of course, he crawls through this fake Gotham, and it's buried in this desert. And once he digs himself out, he finds the Joker's head hanging in a jar, and the Joker kind of promises to tell him everything he knows if he takes him with him. So the Joker becomes Batman's companion through this apocalyptic Mad Max world.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then from there on, we follow Batman as he encounters many different parts of the DC universe that's gone wrong in this world. You get the Green Lantern rings that are kind of working on their own. They've gone awry, and they attack Batman and the Joker. And then we meet, of course, the Mad Max Wonder Woman and her crew of Amazons, and it's kind of all leading to back to Gotham, but we get some stops along the way with Superman and Lex, because Bruce wants to find Superman. There's rumors that he's in this, what is it, the Plains of Solitude?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Question mark.
it's yeah, it is the Plains of Solitude. But yeah, it's like it is like a road trip journey trying to get to the end of this story, and each stop on the trip is something that we see go wrong, or that we've seen gone wrong from the DC universe, whether it be the Green Lanterns or Wonder Woman or Superman, until we finally get back to Gotham at the end. So I don't know how much time you want to focus on each little part of that, but it's
well, the Lex part is creative. Well, the Superman part, let's go with that, in which we do learn, because Wonder Woman has told Batman up to this point that Superman's dead. He's gone.
Yes.
They give the backstory of what happened to the Hall of Justice. I think what I don't like in this is that you're Batman, but Bruce died. You're not the real Batman, and that constantly kind of can make you take a second and take you out of it and try to connect the pieces on what they're talking about, because Batman opened up the door to these people, opened the door to the Hall of Justice. That's what ultimately started, I think, like what do you want to say? That's what started a lot of this.
Yeah,
taking over the heroes, and and Lex rallied the troops, but then they turned on him as well. But then it was like it's we get like 4 panels and a ton of dialogue to try and almost tell the whole history lesson. And so there's a lot, and that's what I mean by the book's like a travelogue, because they're on the move, and then a lot of just exposition. And that to me was one point of, I don't know, I am a lot of times like a show, just don't tell.
Right.
And that was all tell and not enough show to me. Because it can work for me to do a flashback of like, this is what really happened, or to catch us up catch us up to speed here. And then that whole, it was a disconnect to me of that's not really you, Batman, because then it goes back to, oh, this is a just birthed detective number 27, again, who has
Mhm.
some memories, but not all memories. But then he's not. He's trying to catch up to where they are now in history, and like it gets, personal opinion, it gets messy to me at that point.
Well, and see, and for me, on the other end of that, I love the little details. It's what
Sure.
it's what appeals to me about Snyder.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with like if like I love reading Lord of the Rings stuff because I love
Mhm.
like diving into the world and all this little world building stuff. So for me, finding out that this all started with Lex Luthor versus Superman in a debate. It
Yeah.
wasn't a fight. It wasn't a big, Superman versus Lex in a mech suit or anything like that. It was a debate, and it sounds like the world was kind of already going to shit before this
Yeah.
debate, but it was basically Luthor invited Superman to debate and let the world choose telepathically justice or doom. And they had kryptonite shards planted under the earth, and whoever lost this telepathic debate would be impaled by kryptonite. So, and basically, even Lex thought Superman had won,
Yeah.
and it turns out that no, it was Lex that had won. So Superman was killed, and that's what started this whole thing of people chose doom. The world kind of went to crap,
Mhm.
and I do love though that at the Hall of Justice, when they were debating all these hordes of people who, after Superman's death, were just attacking, Bruce had faith in humanity,
Yeah.
and Batman was the one who decided, no, we need to give him a chance, and he opened the door. Even though it didn't turn out well, I like that it was Bruce that had that faith.
And I did take notes of so this is, so there is kind of a cool like Swamp Thing army monsters kind of fight that takes over in a couple pages, but there's a quote in here in which also it took me a long time to realize. So this first person narration, that's the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily work for me either, because
Oh, really?
so this is what, a journal that he's written, but yet he does, at this point he only has a head.
Is
And
it
the Joker
is
doesn't
it a
take
journal?
notes. He doesn't, like, well then,
I took it as maybe it's kind of like an audio recording or something like that, and
hmm,
you're just getting, you're reading it, obviously, because you can't listen to it.
then
Um,
yeah, I didn't eh,
or maybe this is Joker telling the story after the fact to someone.
maybe.
But yeah, the whole book is Joker's narration. But I got to tell you,
Well, there's,
I
I was
love
just
the
gonna say
Joker.
to connect. Okay, we'll go to Joker right after this. What you were just
Okay.
talking about, I do
Mm.
like in my book. It's number 70, where the quote is the scene. So this is the Swamp Thing monsters fight, and it says the scene below was the most natural thing in the world. What had happened here? The same thing that happened everywhere else. We'd revealed ourselves, and it was a horror show. That to me is like that's a lesson and a warning that I think in almost every apocalyptic story is telling
Hmm.
of humanity needs to check themselves, because this is where we could end up. We have
Yes.
we have rules, we have uh, societal norms, humanity in itself. We know how we need to treat each other and such. We can't get too out of line, because, and then you name the apocalyptic show or movie or comic or whatever. I feel like that is such a core of every story. So I really like that line in this, because that does, like, that connects to what you just said of Lex and Superman both thought, obviously people are gonna think Superman, but no, they chose Doom.
Yeah, and I mean it is very telling because how many people choose self destruction, or not even
Yeah.
choose it? It's just the natural inclination of humans sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but one little, now that we're talking all deep, I kind of feel bad bringing it back a little bit to an Easter egg, but the fort is Fort Waller, and I love that little
Yeah.
detail
Yeah.
because there's
Good.
so many
Nice.
little DC Easter eggs in this
Sure.
story.
And that kind of stuff's
Um,
fun. for sure. That when
It
he
is fun.
sprinkles that stuff, and it's not and that's what I mean of if you get it, awesome. You don't need to know the name of this fort. You don't need
Mhm.
to know why is it Waller? What's that mean? You can just read, oh, it's Fort Waller, and you just keep going. But then there's others
Mhm.
who will read Fort Waller and be like, oh, that's kind of fun. And it's just like a fun little spice on top.
Yeah.
But you can still enjoy the meal and or understand it going forward. Notice how I corrected myself, not enjoy, understand.
Yeah, you almost caught yourself liking it there. I
Almost,
saw
yeah.
that.
I'm lying to myself and my audience.
But
Okay, so you
what I
like the
was
Joker.
I do. I love the Joker in this story.
Okay.
And I know some people probably despise how the Joker's portrayed here, but all throughout Snyder's run, the Joker saw himself as Batman's very best friend. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and everything he did, even if you go back to like Death of the Family and Endgame, he thought he was improving Batman with everything that he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, he was trying to make the best Batman, which is such a fun take on Joker. And here, after the Joker has been decapitated and left in a jar, his head in a jar, all he wants to do, he's so thrilled that Batman is here, and he just wants to be by Batman's side the entire time. Even I think the Joker has some hilarious lines in this book. When he's trying to remember knock knock jokes and stuff like that. The first joke when he's like, when he says who's or tells him who's there or whatever, he's like, ah shit, I was supposed to start with knock knock, wasn't I? Ah.
Mm.
So and there's moments like that throughout the book that I just found funny with the Joker.
Go back and listen to Death of the Family episode, and I think I gushed about Snyder's Joker. When we get to Endgame, I will gush about the Joker. It's peaks and valleys in the story for me on Joker. Some of
Really?
it I enjoy, and some of it I don't. I don't have any fresh examples of either. I think the point in what you said in what stands out to me that I did like is his insistence on wanting to be called like Robin,
Yeah.
and wanted to be his Robin. And in the end, the payoff of that does work for me because, like you said, I love the relationship of Batman and Joker in darker tone, like The Dark Knight, or lighter tone in Brave and the Bold, like you name it. I do like the irony of that matchup of Batman versus Joker, and from many different angles. I love that. So here I just remember some lines I just glossed over and just kept going. Other ones I did take a second to appreciate because I did like it. And then yeah, like I said, that payoff of wanting to be Robin, that worked for me.
Well, and there's even that moment near the beginning when they're going through the wasteland and there's the Speed Force storm.
Yeah.
And Batman and Joker have a horse with them, and the
Mm-hmm.
horse and Batman tells the Joker, "I would make this horse Robin before I made you Robin."
Yeah.
And right then is when the horse gets hit by the lightning and ages to death because of the speed storm and the Speed Force storm. And Joker tells him, "Oh, look, another Robin dead already," and or something like that. And it's like, even though Joker's a little more of a sidekick in this story, he still can't help but be a dick.
Yeah. He likes to poke the bear.
He does.
So
But
the Joker wants to
go
be
ahead.
held, or he wants Batman to take him because he's like, I'll tell you. Now let's play catch up. The opening scene of Batman going to Crime Alley, I think it was the opening to book 2. Here, what's really interesting for the Hoopla version is, and I don't know if any other version has this either, you don't know where book 1 ends, book 2 starts, book 2 ends, book 3 starts. It just goes by
That's
the
how
chapters.
the omnibus is laid out as well.
Okay. But there are 3 flashbacks, if you will. Batman going to Crime Alley, Batman talking to Joe Chill, and then Batman on the roof of GCPD with Gordon. They end by just the next page. You're in this. Well, in book 1, you end up in the asylum, but in books 2 and 3, you end up in the apocalypse. What's So that's something that just I can't figure out to me, like what, because Joker tries to explain it in a big, sorry, but a wordy explanation to me towards the end of what those three scenes are. What do they add up to? Because to me, I don't think I don't think that's very clear.
Well, so if you notice, every time one of those flashback scenes of what happened
Mm-hmm.
goes on, it ends with Batman waking up. So he's dreaming this memory every time. So, like in the second book, he's woke up by Joker after he's having the dream about going to Joe Chill's house,
Mm-hmm.
and he's telling Chill that he's found DNA that matches Joe Chill, so it's Joe Chill's kid, even though he knows that Joe Chill doesn't have a child, and all this, and it ends with Joe Chill's house catching on fire, and then Batman wakes up and it's Joker in front of him. So Joker has woke him up.
So the Joe Chill part specifically, that's just a dream.
Well, no, it's so. Do you remember the part about all these Detective 27s being created?
Yeah.
This is an actual memory.
Okay, so then that takes me back even further. Then who was this ghost kid?
Okay, so at the
Zombie
end,
10-year-old Bruce, as I like to think of it.
So at the end, it's explained that Joker set all this up. And it's one of those things, again, where Joker was trying to improve Batman because he thought of it as his last case to try to improve Batman because he did the chalk lines. He messed up the DNA. He put this kid in the alley. He rigged, the arm with the gun and all that good stuff. So this was all Joker.
So, but okay, but it's still, call me dumb. The kid it still does not connect to me on even saying the Joker. Oh, he put this kid who looked like he was a zombie in Crime Alley. Okay, where in Bruce's history? Because this is now a memory of Bruce's history. Where does that fit in? What was this kid then? Because it looks like, and then how does that make Batman stronger? You know what I mean?
So I think that's one of those Joker rationale things where Joker is kind of like, when he made Batman think he was cutting off the Bat family's face in Death of the Family. Joker's twisted sensibility is the more I mess with these trigger points for Batman, the more I can maybe improve him. So his obviously a dead kid in Crime Alley, that looks a lot like Bruce Wayne as a child, is one of those trigger points that Joker in his twisted mind thinks will affect Batman. Because I think ultimately what Joker's trying to do is I think he thinks an insane Batman is the way to go. That's the best Batman, is a crazy Batman. So if I can drive him crazy, then he'll be the best Batman. That's the way I take it.
Hey,
but then I think when you see this Joker in this book and you see what's happened and you find out who the main villain is, I think Joker has finally realized now, oh, this is not the Batman that I wanted is not the best Batman.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Not as much.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's okay. Who am I to say, Scott Snyder, this doesn't make sense? Like,
right.
This is me not putting the pieces together, which is completely possible. But also it's just like something with it, and maybe you are just like telling me, no, this is what it is. You're saying that's how you took it, but maybe that's actually what it is. There's just something in that. It's like, this just doesn't, it's not working for me. It doesn't work.
Right. Well,
I'm not,
and I think that's the thing with this story.
It's just not clicking to me of like an aha moment. I'm like, oh, okay. Instead, it's almost like,
and I think there's a lot to this story that's ambiguous, and it's kind of, Snyder is he's writing the story, but I think he's also letting you interpret some things.
Mm-hmm.
because there's also like there's sort of an inconsistency with the memories that the Batman that the new Detective 27 wakes up with.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to like Super Heavy, it says that every Batman that wakes up will wake up at the point where he won't have any of the memories past the yes, Father, I shall become a bat.
Yeah.
Like that's his moment to become Batman, and then he makes his own future and memories and things like that. And then in this book, it seems like each Batman has the memories of the past Batman. So I don't know. There's a lot of ambiguity to it.
I can go with that, and I can like with ambiguity. It's not that I'm against ambiguity. I like it at times, and other times I want definitive. So this is one of those cases. I don't know. Maybe he provided both. Maybe and I don't know. But we can move on.
Okay.
I want to talk about. Well, first of all, in my book, it says page 134. It reminds me of the Devil's Snare from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The red, it looks like red vines, but it's like the more you struggle, the tighter it gets.
Oh, so this is when they've gotten into Gotham.
Yep.
Okay.
So we are in Gotham now, and Omega. Now, how do you want to completely one word to get Ryan to unplug is to say Omega.
Oh, you don't like Omega.
Thing. That is not my thing. But I was going to read this book beginning to end for you, Eric Carter, so we can have a discussion.
And I appreciate that, Ryan.
But I remembered back when I read the first or book 3 and Omega and stuff then, and I was like, Omega? What? More clear now than it was then to me. Omega, if you have spoiler alert, I guess. I mean, by now you're you're in.
Yeah, just go for it.
Omega is the original Bruce Wayne.
That's the way it's laid out in the book. I don't think so. And I'll tell you why.
Tell me why.
The way that it's described what happened to Bruce when he opened the door, because it's pretty graphic. I mean, you hear about, him being trampled, his teeth being knocked out, his tongue being ripped out. It leads you to believe he was dead.
Yeah.
I think he was. I don't think this is the original Bruce. Now, it very well could be. You could ask Scott Snyder and he could tell you, yeah, that's the original Bruce. This is what happened. But if you remember back in the Superman Lex section, when everything went wrong, Lex said we even tried to create a new Batman. And it went horribly wrong and it didn't work. I think this is that Batman that went wrong.
I would go more along with what you're saying because I think that we get Wonder Woman Wonder Woman explained what happened to the original Batman, right? When she said that his tongue was ripped out.
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay.
That was Omega telling about the tongue being ripped out and stuff like that.
It discredits all of this at this point that I keep calling exposition. That part that we told you, we didn't show you, we just told you about, yeah, that part's not true. Oh, but everything else is. It's like once you, it's almost like to me with all of that, once you lie about one detail, well, then the rest could fall apart too.
What lie?
This. So we're led to believe during what happened at the Hall of Justice that Batman was killed. She's just telling us that of like giving us the history lesson of what happened. And then, and up to this point, she keeps filling us in on what happened. That I keep saying is, we're on this journey and she's just informing us of, oh yeah, this happened and this happened and this happened.
Right.
One of those details that she tells us is that Batman died. Okay. Well, if if he didn't really die, because this is him at the end of the story, well, then how do we know all this other stuff that you've been setting us up also happened?
Well,
You know, it's like if you're gonna tell us
and
and not
that's
show us,
and
well,
that's why
then
I don't think that she is lying. Like I said,
and
I
that
do think Batman died.
and that's where I think I am with you on that, because if I'm not to believe what you think and lead that, then it kind of crumbles even more for me.
Mhm.
So I want to believe
So,
the Lex Luthor part of we tried to create a Batman. There he is at the end.
mhm.
He's a
And see,
corrupt.
and one of the reasons I think this is because this Batman that you see at the end, yeah, he's pretty scarred up, but from the description of what happened to him at the Hall of Justice, I mean, he looks
Mhm.
pretty good. If that's him,
Yeah,
um,
he just looks like he's been in some wars and he's been victorious.
and I think his scars are what happened to him when you know the Legion of Doom and the heroes that were left figured out, oh, this is not good. I think
Yeah.
this was an attack. You know, this was the final battle or whatever. But yeah, I don't think this Batman is the Batman that we've seen all the way through the New 52.
So then what's his, basically as we see up through this Omega person is it anti-life
Yeah, so
equation?
he's modified the anti-life equation. He's killed Darkseid. So he has Darkseid's head on a pike, and
Yeah.
he has taken over the anti-life equation, and he's modified it.
R.I.P. Uxas.
Pretty
Peter Vera. There you go. Anyways, carry
Yeah,
on.
Uxus. So he's modified the anti-life equation to basically turn the world and Gotham into what he thinks is right. You know,
Yeah.
to
Which,
restore order.
I mean, classic bad guy. Am I right? So, I mean,
Yeah,
when you get to that point, like that part makes sense, but also like I can't even remember fully of like why does he want it this way? What's the big like this is why I need it, but also
because
for me and a villain, and with that it's like that just sounds, sometimes a villain's just a villain, man.
yeah. So I think because of the memory, because I do think I do think when they say they created a Batman, I think they used Bruce's machine to create a Batman.
Hmm.
And it went, you know, obviously the Legion of Doom, probably not the best people to be making a Batman. Um, I think he had some of those memories that we're talking about that each Batman gets when they, you know, the Detective 27, when they wake up, they have memories. I think this corrupted Batman's memory of what happened at the Hall of Justice is what caused him to do what he's done in this book.
Gotcha.
You know, he's already corrupted. He has this memory of, well, I tried to help the world and look what they did for me. So,
Okay.
and I know that I can tell that's not working for you, Ryan.
I love the art. Like,
Well, as
I
long as there's something for you to enjoy, you know?
yeah, and that's where I'm not, I wanted to have a discussion, not a because I would never just shit on a book either. Um Discuss the
Well,
book and what doesn't
and with a
work and
book
stuff.
like
And
this, I
so
mean, it's so complex and you have to put a lot of thought into so much of it. I mean,
yeah.
it's not your Batman Hush where it's just a straight adventure, you know, fun little mystery. There's a lot to Snyder expects a lot of the reader here, I think.
Yeah.
Because you really have to think about what you're reading. And I'm not saying I'm not making that criticism of oh, you just don't get it or anything like that, because I mean,
Yeah.
you can get this story and still not like it.
Yeah.
So,
And there are parts of you've heard me already at this point of parts that I didn't get. You explain
mhm,
them, I got them, and then I still just didn't like that result.
right.
Um
Yeah.
Before I comment on the art, so then that part, chapter 10, so ultimately, or part 10, what Lex was trying to do ends up succeeding at the very end. Then we
Yeah.
get
Well,
a new Batman did it. Well, sorry.
because Lex Luthor is the second smartest man in the world behind Batman. So what Lex Luthor was trying to do, Batman could do,
Yeah. And so we get a
which
new
was
Superman, a birth
yeah,
of Superman, basically.
yeah. So
Which,
Lex was trying to open a wormhole to an alternate universe or something like that, and bring Kal-El to our world, and he was failing over and over and over again.
and
But
that's where
Batman,
I lean both ways with this, because at the end it's a triumphant moment because Superman's here. It's like, but this is a Batman book. But then also, and it kind of gives the spotlight of like, what's the underlying vibe here? It's like Superman born again, but that's almost a slight pessimistic view, because the optimistic view there is Superman is, as we see in everything, like he's hero number one. You know, they feel like we need a Superman. We need Superman. The Justice League feels that way. Batman is the only one that was able to get this done where we have Superman again. So it does bring it back around to the importance of Batman. Without him, you wouldn't have this triumphant moment at the very end. So that's kind of like where I like to lean. I think initial reaction is the pessimistic side, but then it's like, no, pause, think about it. And then I can be like, oh yeah, Batman is the best.
Absolutely. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, Superman and Clark Kent is Bruce Wayne's best friend.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So of course this Batman would want a Superman in his world.
Yeah.
I mean, he has all of these memories of these past, Batmen that are best friends with Clark Kent. Of course he would want that. I mean, if you could if you didn't have your best friend and you could replicate them, and have him there, you would. So yeah, so I love that what Lex Luthor couldn't do at the end, of course Batman could, because he's Batman.
He's Batman.
And I love this final suit that Batman's in at the end of the book.
It's not a yellow oval, but it's a yellow bat.
And it's blue.
There you go. And blue cape and cowl. So, I mean, that's cool. Joker is very happy as Robin.
Joker Robin. Yeah.
Good for him.
I love that little arc, that when he gets the Tim Drake Robin suit earlier in the book, the mech suit. Yeah. And he's got the mask on the inside of the suit, and he's telling Batman, I didn't know, I saw this mask floating by, I put it on, I didn't know whether it should be on the inside or outside. Robin would have had it on the outside, wouldn't he? Damn it. And, and then at the end of the book, he's got the mask on the outside of the jar. So yeah, like I said, I love the Joker humor in this book.
The look, like I'll just say again, I think I love the art in here. I think Capullo gets to do the very beginning feels a little reminiscent of some of the dark stuff and shadowy stuff that he did in the New 52 run, which is comfortable because it was like more of stuff that I already loved. But then he really gets to kind of go all over the place here with stuff. I'm not huge on any of the other designs of characters, the apocalyptic designs, but I mean, the art's fantastic throughout. He does such a good job.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Greg Capullo art. No, these character designs are not my favorite, but I don't think they're intended to be either. If you say take the DC characters and put a Mad Max aesthetic on them, what would they look like if it was, a post-apocalyptic world? I mean, I think Greg Capullo knew what the assignment was.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if they're not your favorite, and they're not my favorite, but I still think Wonder Woman looks pretty cool.
The mohawk,
even with the mohawk,
the mohawk Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to touch on?
I really like, yeah. So the Omega Batman's number one lieutenant is kind of this Scarecrow Bane mashup, where it's a kind of a zombified Bane, but he carries around this legless Scarecrow. I love it. It is so zany and crazy, but it's almost like some of those weird double bosses in a video game.
Yeah, I get you.
Or even, and you would be the perfect person to ask this. I can never
Oh,
remember.
boy.
Is it Krang from the Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, it's Krang.
It reminds me of that. Like this big guy toting around this little guy. It reminds me of that. Yeah, exactly.
Scarecrow's fingers make me think of Scarecrow from the Arkham games.
Yes.
Definitely the long ass needles. I don't know. It's weird, but I don't hate it. But it's nowhere near my favorite Scarecrow interpretation either. Bane looks pretty much like Bane, so I like that. That works for me.
Well, I mean,
Scarecrow is something different, but that thing comes.
Look how
that
great
thing
of
comes,
a cover that is, Ryan.
that Scarecrow comes crawling toward me in an alley. It'd be the fastest I've ever run in my life. So
Well, yeah.
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Then it's supposed to be scary.
Nasty ass spider. Okay, let's hop into some favorites. You want to do that?
Okay.
You got some
Sure.
favorites? I have some favorites too. This story.
I'm excited to hear your
have favorites.
Nice.
Eric, what is your favorite part of Last Night on Earth?
So can I cheat a tiny bit? Because I have
Judges?
my favorite, and then I have a tiny bit of honorable mention.
All right, go for it.
So the honorable mention is when Batman is in the Amazonian bunker or hideout or whatever. Is when he's talking to the little boy, and the little boy is terrified because they're going. The Amazon plan is to take them down into Hades, where it's pitch black, and Bruce is sitting here talking to this little boy. And the little boy's saying, well, you're Batman. Can you see in the dark? And he's telling him how scared he is and everything.
Yeah.
And it ends with the little boy saying, well, we can't make noise. And Batman telling about echolocation, and that's how bats communicate. And he says, well, we can't make noise. And Bruce tells him, well, we can make noise right now. And they yell hello together. I love that moment. I think it's just kind of heartwarming. And it's like, this big, you think of Batman as this bruiser and just asshole sometimes, and then you got this just neat little heartwarming moment.
Nice.
But my favorite part,
because
I love callbacks to older Snyder stuff, and this is a callback all the way to the Court of Owls. I love when Batman and Diana get to Gotham. They're confronted by the Court of Owls, and the leader is Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
I love that part because Dick Grayson was destined to be a Talon in the Court of Owls story way back at the beginning of the New 52, and now he is in the Court of Owls, but he's changed the Court of Owls into something good. Yeah. I really like that.
Nice. That's a good one. Bravo. I gotta say, I don't have an honorable mention because my favorite part is definitely the asylum part.
That's a good part.
For everything that we've already mentioned with it, I do like the mystery of what's really happening here. We're supposed to be accepting what is being presented to us, but we are just like Bruce. We know this isn't all that it seems. And so then it was exciting and fun to go with him on the discovery of what's really going on. And it's before everything goes batshit crazy.
Yes.
How about a favorite panel?
So favorite panel, again, this one's a hard one, Ryan, because of how much I like Snyder or Capullo art. But man, it's this last page in the first book. This Batman walking through the desert. This is reddish purple page. You can see just a little bit of the purple in Batman's cape. The silhouetted, just scary looking Batman, and then you see the Joker in that jar under his arm. I love that panel. That's so. If I had to choose a favorite, that would be the one that I pick.
Nice. Mine is the third page into book one, the first panel of Batman with the boy under the umbrella. There's no dialogue. It's just an image underneath the street lamp in the rain. Batman's silhouette and the boy under the umbrella. I just
That's a
love
really
that
good one.
image. If you like, you could just have that picture by itself, and you could come up with something about it and how representative it is of that was like you could look at it as that was Bruce, and now look at he's Batman. Like something really, really great about that image.
Well, what I like about that image is something I think I can say about my favorite image as well. And it's something you say all the time. You can look at those images and form a story in your mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Like with that one, with the one you picked, you can go all kinds of different directions. What's going on in this alley? But then the one I picked, it's like, man, this can go in all kinds of crazy. What is
Yeah.
going on? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, good pick,
The
Ryan.
imagination gets to run wild. Would you like to see this adapted in animation?
No, I would
No.
not. No.
Whoa! What a twist!
So there's certain books that I think lend themselves to adaptation, and there's certain stories that I think don't.
Okay.
I don't think an animated version of this would be received well because it is very high concept, and there's a lot of detail and a lot going on, and I just don't know how you translate this into something easily digestible for an audience. I think it's better served in book form. I think if you look at something more recently like Injustice, which worked so great as a comic series from Tom Taylor, and I like it. I think you kind of like it, and I've seen a few people like it, but it did not get received well. So
Yeah.
I think there's some stuff like this, and I think this book is one of them that just probably wouldn't translate well to motion media.
This is one that in first time in a while that I think could be, it wouldn't need additional story added on to fulfill a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, you don't necessarily have to read anything going into this. You could just go right into it. But as far as me, would I like to see it adapted in animation? No. I think I'd rather there are other Batman stories I would definitely like to see their attempt at before this one. And it's not because I hate it. I don't hate it. I think I've talked about things that don't connect with me and why I don't love it. And there are so many Batman stories I do love that I would like to see them take a crack at before this one. But if it was announced that this was coming out, I would buy it because it's Batman, and I would watch it objectively
for sure.
because it's Batman. So,
well, and I think the thing is, I mean, if you look at the entire Snyder Capullo run, and you say which one of these arcs would you adapt in animation? Last Night on Earth is not the first one you're going to grab.
Yeah, I don't think that would be number one. Oh, Last Night on Earth, there we riot.
So yeah.
Eric, do you have any final thoughts on this story, Batman Last Night on Earth?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how good of a job I've done convincing anybody that this is a Batman book you should read, but I definitely think so. I mean, if you haven't read it, you can get a lot more out of the story just so far as details and things that we don't have time to tell you here. It's one that it's very, for lack of a better term, Grant Morrison-esque.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of high concept ideas here. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are really complex and complicated, and some stuff, again, like we've said throughout this episode, that is left ambiguous and leaves it up to you to think about. And what do you think about what happened here or there? But at the end of the day, it's one that I really, really enjoy. It's by no means my favorite of the Snyder run, but I think it's a fitting end for if you want to put a beginning and an end on the Snyder Capullo run.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it.
Yeah,
it's a really fun read for me.
There you go. I don't hate it. I don't think I like it that much. And I know that sounds funny, but I mean, okay, Robert Pattinson said in, I think it's the Total Film article, that
Mhm.
he doesn't think that there has been, that he knows there are some Batman movies that get shit, but he doesn't think that a bad one has been made yet. Each one accomplished what it set out trying to do.
Mhm.
I think I do fall kind of in that camp of, it's hard for me to come across something Batman that I just flat out hate.
Mhm.
So there are levels of not liking, I think, and this is one. It was not a chore to go back and read it again. I was not dreading that you were. I knew because you told me, you gave me the heads up quite a while ago. This was your next
Mhm.
choice. I wasn't dreading it. I wasn't. I was looking forward to reading it kind of fresh. I remembered there are parts of it that I remembered. I remembered the opening and the asylum part and stuff, and I wasn't dreading rereading it. I was hoping that I would read it again and that more would connect and I would like it more than I did first read. Uh,
Mhm.
More connected. I don't know that I liked it more than when I read it before. Um, so I mean, I will read it again. It's probably going to be a while before I do that.
Why do you hate
Um,
Scott Snyder, Ryan?
yeah, I know. I know. He has reached out to me and asked me to keep his name out of my mouth. I don't know how many times. He's going to send out
And are
one of
you sure
his
you weren't dreading
assassins.
this? Are you sure?
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, and it sounds weird. I know, to be like, I don't like it. And it's like, oh my God, we get the point. I'm a little more clear on these feelings than I am with RIP, but yet I could still, I just mentioned to you that I almost bought the hardcover of this book. It may become a purchase for on the bat shelf one day, because there are elements of it that I do really like. So that's good enough for me to at least revisit a Batman book. So
Mhm.
there you go. There's my final thoughts.
Nice.
And
Well,
before
and
we
if
let
nothing
you
else,
go,
there's some cool art to look at.
oh yeah, there's great art, and the asylum part is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. But before we let you go, definitely
Mhm.
got to tell the good folks, in case they didn't see it, that there was a poll on the last episode, after the last episode, Batman in January, that I put out on the Twitter at the Batman BC. Want to get you those results. It was the question, I think it's become pretty monthly after the wrap up episodes. It said, of those listed, which Batman comic was your favorite in January? Eric, 32% of the fine folks who voted for Batman the Night #1. Did you happen to participate in this poll?
I did, and
Ooh,
I am
would you
among
vote?
that 32%.
Hey, yeah, my man.
I really like that story. Or the first issue of what we got. I really enjoyed it.
There was not, I wasn't expecting to not like it. Had Chip Zdarsky. The guy's on fire.
Mm-hmm.
He's writing good stuff. So I was excited to see what he was coming up with, and yeah, that story. That's what I voted in the poll myself. That was my pick as well. I loved Batman the Night. So that's the Batman poll. Comes out after every episode is released. So just make sure to go to Twitter at the Batman BC for the Last Night on Earth poll, which you'll have to go there to find out what that is. So Eric Carter, my friend, I thank you for coming on to the Batman Book Club once again. This has been a good discussion and a fun discussion.
Well, I'm glad you think so, and
Okay,
I
good.
want to commend you, Ryan, for even if you don't necessarily like a story, or maybe you don't get the appeal of the story. I like that it's a Batman story, and you still want it on the show if somebody wants to talk
Absolutely.
about it.
It's a Batman
I mean,
story
with
that
the
is
Batman,
valid.
right? I mean, with the Batman RIP episode, it's the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't appeal to you, it's Batman, and it deserves to be talked about. So, I think that's awesome that you do that.
Well, bless your soul, Eric Carter. Why don't you come back on the show, okay? Come on now.
Ah,
What's your
I
next
like
one?
that.
If you choose metal, I'm going to say no. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If people are not following you now, why don't you go ahead and plug away? Where can people hear more and read more from you?
So for my personal accounts, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at mecarter89. That's mecarter89. My podcast, The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast. Can be found on just about any platform that you listen to podcasts on, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But you can find our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and that's at TFR Batpod. And now we actually have a companion blog. Our first review or first blog entry is up on there. And by the time this episode drops, I should have the second entry on there, which is going to be a review of the omnibus that we talked about today, the Volume 2 Snyder and Capullo omnibus. So you can find that at tfrbatpod.blogspot.com.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, your blog on the Technic, the Batman Batmobile is pretty great. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Well done, sir.
That's an awesome car.
Yeah, it is. Can't wait to see it in like 4 weeks. Anyways, so if you aren't already, you can follow the Batman Book Club on Twitter and Instagram at the Batman BC for latest episode drops, upcoming episodes, and sometimes even some giveaways. If you have any questions or comments, you can write them to thebatmanbc@gmail.com. Make sure if you'd like to enjoy some other fun little extras, you can subscribe to the Batman Book Club YouTube channel. And if you want to help support the show, you can do that through Patreon. Like I said at the top of the show, patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Or you can help support the show with merchandise from TeePublic. But if you want to help the show and you don't want to spend any money at all, that is 100% A-okay. The best way to do that is through rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Yes, a link to the rate and review page is in the description of this episode. The more reviews the Batman Book Club gets, the more it helps spread the word. And as we all know, the word is panic. So, for me, Carter89, I am Ryan Lauer. And until next time, read more Batman comics.